I'm going to talk about stuffing and doing layers of stuffing, and I'm going to use a couple of different projects. I'm going to stuff this house with trees and the roof, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to stuff the lion. I've already started him on my Christmas in Oz stocking. But first, I just want to talk real quickly about some of my favorite tools that I like to have. This is what I use to store my sequins. These are very inexpensive. You can buy them in a fishing section like at Walmart, or even in the craft section at Walmart or a fishing store. I like this because no matter how I move this container, the sequins stay in their compartment, and that is not always true for a lot of beading kits. The sequins are so thin that sometimes they're able to travel outside the lid. So this is what I find best, and I like to fill all of the containers up with a different color of sequin and one container with the clear beads, because the clear beads are what are used to anchor every color. And I'll pull out a batch of my sequins, set them on the table while I'm working, and then I just pull out a clear bead one at a time as I need it for my project. I have a couple of these, so I have one with my red sequins that has the red beads. And I always try and make sure I also have a clear bead section in each of these, but they're real inexpensive and they just really work out nicely to have on hand. And I also like to use cuticle sticks, wooden cuticle sticks, to help with my stuffing. I got this really long one at Walmart or Walgreens in a packet of 10 that's good, but this standard one is probably my favorite. It has a nice pointy end and then an angled end. Check that out in the beauty section, and I'll show you how I use those while I put my stuffing together. Okay, I'm going to show you how I like to add my stuffing in. I use a fiber fill made by Fairfield, or a polyfill by Fairfield. It has a nice spring to it. It's nice and easy to work with. And I usually grab a big wad, and I've sewn down my straight edge over here. Now I know I'm going to be layering, so I'm going to go kind of light on this stuffing, but I kind of like to do it as I go, as I stitch, and I find that's how I have the most success in getting a nice little puff even in the pointy areas. And I had noticed earlier, I want to point this out too, that my stamped white line was kind of right out here where I might not cover it. And the way I like to handle that is, I hope you can see, I'm rubbing just real lightly my needle tip along that stamped line, and it's really kind of just thinning it out. And I'm going to use the edge of my needle to push the fiber in and really work that little stamped area. Let me get situated here with my thread. Not so easy to do from this angle. And then as I stitch along here, I'm just going to constantly just push that fiber fill in there a little bit. And the trees are tricky with the points. Nice smooth curved areas are much easier to do, but that's why I'm going to show you. And I just try and keep using my needle tip to push things as I work. Like I said, I know I'm going to have a little log cabin layered up against this tree on the edge, so I don't want to get it real poofy. You know, sometimes I really like to stuff something nice and full and give it a good dimension, but when I know I'm going to layer, I have to keep that in mind. So I hope you can see I'm just trying to play with that edge before I start stitching it, pushing that polyfill just underneath that edge. Still working it. I don't want to mess too much with the very tip because the felt can get kind of thin through there, and I don't want to destroy any of that. So I have, you can see I am getting just a little poof there, and this Fairfield polyfill will relax on its own and poof up after it's stitched in place. This is a favorite polyfill of doll makers for that reason. And I can see a little, just like I said, I'm using my needle. Sometimes I will use, I don't have my little stick handy, but I will use this too. The wood really grasps a hold of those poly fibers nicely. I'm just trying to hold things together and work on it as I go. Now, that little white area, I'm not sure. I'm just going to pick at it with my needle. I think that's a little stamping up there. I'm just going to kind of pick at it and make it a little less thick. That stamping almost leaves a little ridge on the felt. And by pushing your needle, rubbing it on there, you kind of work that top ridge off it. Oops. My needle hesitated just a little bit there. And now the sequins sometimes get in the way. We'll just work around them. We managed to come out pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the wood. And I'm just going to put the tiniest bit in there. You really just got to play with it sometimes. Like I said, I don't want to go too heavy over by the house because I'm going to have a layer there. I'm going to have to sew on. That might be, I really do spend a lot of time till I feel just right about it. I know there's going to be something appliqued here. Look for my needle. And then I'll close that up. Now, since this edge is going to be covered up by another piece, I'm going to just make my spacing of my stitches a little bigger and fly through this section. Okay, I'm going to put a tree on over here and then we'll start our layering. So I wanted to talk a little bit about when you're layering appliques and with stuffing and how I handle it. In this case, I actually sewed the door and the windows on to the red piece first, and then I came back and did this outline stitch in the black for the windows and the outline stitch up here for the windows, and then came back in and did the satin stitch. Now I'm coming back with a red thread that matches the background color of the house to add some dimension after I've appliqued it on and stuffed it. And I've already gone around this black line, and I've gone around this door with just small stitches and this window here, and I've started doing the window, the second story window, and I just want to show you that I do, of course I got a knot, hold on. Anyway, I just want to show you that I do small stitches. I put them very close in here. They just get lost in the felt because the thread matches. but it will add the dimension. Initially you might see the felt, but as I work with it and it pulls in, or initially you may see the threads, but they get pulled in to the felt as I tug on it, and they eventually get lost in there. And that's how I like to add dimension. It's hard to stitch through the felt and the stuffing, 2 layers of stuffing to do the embroidery, but this little extra stitching around here gives it a little dimension, and I like the way that looks in the end product. And you really, as long as you get it really close, you're not going to see it. So I'll real quickly do the other window, just so you really can see the finished. And I'm going to go back and do this last window around the shutters. Just a single thread in the matching background color right along where I've already stitched. I'm trying to kind of hide it back behind the applique edge. And it's just kind of a loose outline. I'm just trying to push the stuffing in a little. I don't have to do a heavy outline. And I think you get the idea here, but this is something that I like to do. I like the stuffing part of it. I like there to be a little dimension to it, and sometimes I add stuffing in places that they don't call for it, because I think it really is what makes it look handmade. There's that little extra step with so many things that come out of inexpensive places like China, and you can go to Walmart and get a pretty little stocking. These are little things you do to make it look like it's not machine made. People don't really appreciate all that anymore. Okay, so the next I've got to put the roof on and the little eaves. I wanted to show the progress on my Christmas in Oz stocking and how I'm working with stuffing the parts of the lion. I'm pretty generous in my stuffing. This lion he's a chubby guy. So when I did this, I sewed all around these edges, and then I pushed the stuffing in with my wooden stick, my wooden cuticle stick, and then sewed across the top. I like to make all the body parts pretty much at one time, do all this outline stitching for the toe and paw definition, and I just kind of want you to see that I really stuff him. So he has a nice full arm, and I'll have this one setting to add at the final stages. My next step is going to be to add the body on top of all this and stuff it. Okay, one last look at the lion and how I stuffed him, because he's chubby, as you know, got his little body in here, and I got carried away and put the scarf on before I showed you the rest of it. But I just wanted to point out too, because I do make mine real puffy and stuffed sometimes, how it might look from the back side, and you can see the dimension back there. It's pulling on the felt. I want to assure you, as I go through making this stocking, when it's all done, it's going to lay nice and smooth, but I do like to have puffy areas. I'm also working real quickly on the matching ornament set. So I've stuffed, these are to me are like making little dolls, so I've stuffed him pretty nice and full. It's pretty firmly in there. So I just wanted to give you one last look at how I like to stuff things, because I think I do it much more than the kits show. So don't be afraid.